If you tell Chat GPT or AI to write you a 200-page book, okay, we'll go do it. But if you can't back it up with stories, then I think it's worthless. I welcome that competition. I think our customers deserve better from us. I don't think it's going to replace the fact of doing the work and actually being able to articulate what we are trying to learn or present to someone.
Welcome to AI to Z. Hosted by Airswift's Chief Revenue Officer, Anna Frazzetto, we delve into artificial intelligence, health tech, and more. Tune in and journey with us into the future.
Well, welcome everyone. Today, I'm really excited. I know I say this often when I'm doing the podcast, but I was just recently having a conversation with Casey not too long ago, and it kind of sparked that, hey, we need to do this podcast again because, Casey, you're doing so much in the sales and leadership field, but there was an interesting thing that we were talking about, AI in particular, and can AI kill curiosity? So, of course, we're going to dig a little bit deeper. I'm not going to give away the answer. But Casey is a seasoned elite sales and leadership coach. I love that you talk about how you help companies realize their potential, their power, and the impact of humility, vulnerability, and curiosity on relationship building. You also host a weekly podcast for fathers, which I think is such a wonderful idea. It's called the Quarterback Dadcast, and you allow fathers to learn from other fathers and kind of help them improve in their leadership skills, not only inside the house and outside the house. The last thing that I'll share is I also enjoy the fact that you talk about that you're the same person inside and outside. So there isn't like a professional version of Casey versus dad versus husband. It's one and the same thing. So Casey, welcome to the podcast.
I'm grateful to be here. I always love spending time with you, Anna. And eventually we will meet in person, even though I feel like I've known you my whole life.
I know. It's so funny. We met, it was the COVID kind of changed everything. Then when we had the potential to get together, unfortunately, it didn't work out. But let's get started. So let me start with, is AI killing curiosity a key ingredient to sales? We both feel really passionate how curiosity really shapes a sales individual, a sales leader, a sales manager. So what are your thoughts?
I think it can do both. I think curiosity can actually ignite. I think AI can ignite curiosity, but I think it can also create complacency because as sellers, the word I'm going to make all the sellers cringe, that word role play, but I don't like role play. I like the word practice. Because in sports, we practice, in theater, we practice, and becoming the best doctor, we practice, the pilot, we practice, yet in sales, we like to wing it, which makes no sense to me. So if we're going to use AI to make us smarter, maybe, accelerate how smart we are, in quotes, we still got to practice. We still got to back up what we're writing or what we're saying or what we're learning. And if we can't back it up with experience, I think it's risky. And I think our customers deserve better from us. And so I think I hope I articulated my answer clearly enough, but I think it can do both, but it's still, I don't think it's going to replace the fact of doing the work and actually being able to articulate what we are trying to learn or present to someone.
Right. And that's such a valid point. I think AI, if it's used as a tool to maybe help you learn a little bit more and do research on your prospect list and things of that nature, but it's not a shortcut, right? And I think that's the fear, is that it becomes a shortcut.
Yeah, even this morning there was I saw a headline this morning that Fortune 500 companies are their fears have been increased on the negative impacts of AI due to how is it going to be regulated? How is it going to be, from the copying of content? And as an author, it doesn't scare me because, and like I mentioned earlier, you still got to back it up. So go ahead and if you tell Chat GPT or AI to write you a 200-page book, okay, we'll go do it. But if you can't back it up with stories, then I think it's worthless. And I welcome that competition. But There's so much I do like about, like, I use AI for like my podcast. It helps me like put the audio when I can drag a file right into this tool, and like within 5 minutes it spits out like a summarized version. Now that to me saves me tons of time. If I was going to write like an outline of I want to create a course, or I want to create a presentation, well, at least it kind of gives me a framework, gets my mind going, and then I fill in the blanks and kind of rewrite it. But I think if it's just doing the work for you and you're just hitting buttons, it's like, I don't think that was what it was meant to do.
Right. So it's interesting you say that, because I was just having this conversation about, the fear of, I have a daughter-in-law who's a teacher, and she is so anti-AI for the reasons, just like, I don't want kids using it to do their homework. And, again, from my perspective is, well, if it's used as a tool that's going to help them trigger to think about things a little bit differently, or help them with, grammar, for example, that was never a strength of mine. So then I'm all for it, but not to do the paper for you, right? That's the part.
Well, think about, so if I was going to play devil's advocate to her, I would say, well, think about when you put people up in partners. You partner on like a partner project, and you're going to work well, it's kind of like what you're doing. Both people got to do the work, but if it helps me trigger a thought, and then I go on it. But I guess the hard part for the educators or content creators is, how do you police what's AI or what's Anna's work or Casey's work, and how do you know the difference? I think like grammar, I use Grammarly. I love Grammarly. I make the same mistake every time on when to use the comma or when not to use the comma after and in a sentence. You think I'd figure it out at age 48? Still haven't. Trying my best.
I know. So there's definitely advantages. You kind of hit on this a little bit about, not getting lazy, but why do you emphasize the importance of maintaining your fundamental, sales skills in today's technology-driven world? Or not getting lazy, like how do we counter that?
I think we've relearned, or we've been re-humbled by the what's happened to us coming out of COVID. Like, people forgot how to communicate. People forgot how to talk. The number of sales leaders I talk to that their sales teams, they've lacked confidence. They don't know how to write. They're struggling with messaging. Well, these are fundamental skills that you still got to practice. You still, you need to understand, like, what for example, like, how does everybody in your executive team, can they articulate the problems we solve, how we solve them differently or better than our competition? Where do we do it, and where's our proof? If everybody can't tell that in a succinct story, that's a gap. So like, I think fundamentals of, like you and I joked that one day a month ago is, AI will never replace the art of being nice, I believe. And when you're nice and you create someone to smile and you make them feel a certain way, like, AI can't do that, in my opinion. So bringing energy to the room, setting expectations, being a good listener. AI isn't going to I don't think document your CRM as well as a human could. Maybe prove me wrong. Maybe it can. AI cannot. What about checking our ego? So sometimes our ego gets in the way of internal relationship, external relationships. And then patience. Like, we have to have patience. So these are all fundamental things. Those are things I wrote about that I think I didn't realize how important were going to be now when I wrote back in 2020. But these are skills that I'm still not always good at. And these are the things where I have to constantly remind myself, like, hey, these are the skills I used when I was in corporate to help me achieve some results maybe I didn't even think I would ever do in my life, but I did. And now I'm like, well, I want to keep doing that. So I'm going to keep focusing on these fundamental skills. I'm still going to use technology where it makes sense. But in the end, it's like, if I use AI to be the best, pro NFL football player, and all of a sudden I get out in the field and I'm, 5'3" and 126 pounds, I'm probably not going to do that well out there. I'm going to get hurt. So it's like, you still got to get in the weight room. You still got to get in the track. You still got to eat well. Same thing in business. You still got to practice. You still got to understand, like, why does our product need us? You still got to follow a sales process. Like, are we going to force deals in? Or are we going to meet customers where they are? So I think my view right now, and we always can change because nothing's forever, but AI right now is a great, like, a motorcycle and a sidecar. It's my little buddy, but I still got to do the work, and anyway, I'll get off my soapbox there.
No, that's great, Casey. You said something that I want to spend a couple of extra minutes on about the confidence part, and this is something that I see constantly as I mentor, people like kind of like the next generation of sales is the loss of confidence, and I really do believe that AI or social media or some of these technological tools chip away at it. And the key is because you're forgetting how to connect, right? Everything that you just mentioned before about patience or checking your ego or practicing, those are all things that help you connect with an individual and who you're trying to sell to. And if you can't, I remember the day of practicing your spiel or your presentation in front of a mirror, right? Look at yourself. Are you smiling? Are you making eye contact? Some of those basic, really rudimentary types of things that if you're hiding behind email or you're hiding behind texting someone or you're hiding behind AI generating a response for you, you're taking away that connection. And sales is all about personal connection.
100%. And you actually, well, when you said the mirror story, you actually took me back to a day I got re-humbled at age 41. When I was still at K-Force, where I was helping us, as leading a sales transformation training. And the gentleman, his name was Ray. Ray called me out, and in a nice way, I wrote about it in my book. But he literally asked me if I practiced, and I didn't. So that was almost like me kind of winging it, but without even realizing I was doing it. But it just kind of further cemented, man, you gotta. I ended up practicing in front of the mirror in my hotel room that night. Those stories, when they happen, I like sharing them because it's like if we as leaders can lead with humility, then it creates others to say, well, if he or she's leading and I look up to him or her, then why can't I be humble? So, I think of an example of my son who just graduated. He's off to college, like we talked about here in a couple of days. And as a senior, they had to give their final presentations. And I said, well, and part of that was like a 3-minute speech on your journey throughout the school district from kindergarten all the way through high school. And I said, well, Ryder, we're going to practice. He's like, what do you mean, Dad? I said, you're going to present to me. Why? I go, because that's what I teach, and you're getting it for free at 18 years old. And so you're going to practice. He's like, and I said, you can giggle all you want, make it uncomfortable, but you're not leaving the kitchen until we get done with this. You're going to do it. You're going to do it great. He's like, oh, all right. And he did the first time. I go, good job. I said, but you look down a lot. He did it again. Good job. Now you looked at me, but you just stood in one spot. I said, you got the whole kitchen. This is your football field. Run around. This is your golf course. Walk anywhere. Have a conversation with me. And he did it. And then he was like, all of a sudden he's like, because he practiced, got into character. Now he's just shooting the you-know-what with me. I'm like, you're ready, dude. He goes and does it. And Ryder was a BA student, not like your smartest of the smartest, but he's a really hard worker. But what I like to teach is the emotional skills, the EQ kind of things we're talking about on, the things that AI will not give you, I believe. And the teacher was like, you're ready. One of the best I've ever seen. And all he did was he practiced. He's not more talented than any other kids, but the fact that we practiced, we worked on the fundamentals, some of the things that I know you and I are very passionate about, Anna. And when you practice, that's why I have the word believe behind me. Kobe Bryant talked about, believe in yourself always. That, if you don't start with belief, no matter what, you're not. You're already behind. So I think we can, as leaders, as parents, as friends, whatever it is, instill some belief in people. Yeah, let's still grow and be open-minded to the awesome technology we have, but we still got to do the work, everybody. We still got to put in the work, still got to put in the fundamentals. It is a journey, and I'm on when I'm 90 in the assisted living facility, then we'll talk about how great we are. But until then, we all can get better each and every day. And that's really my mindset that just keeps me kind of grounded and humbled.
Oh, and you talk about being humble, and you talk about vulnerability, I know often. And maybe you can share a couple of personal stories that kind of relied on your sales skills that weren't oh, I needed to know all these facts and figures, but more significant, kind of that EQ component that I think often gets overlooked.
I can think of two examples, one a football story, but one a staffing story. So where I learned the power of humility and vulnerability early was in my staffing career, which was led by football, which I'll talk about in a second, is so in the early days, I worked for a company called Hull Kenyon. Kforce purchased Hull Kenyon in June of 2004. And I remember I was like this competitive. I wanted the more seasoned recruiter to like me, and I like to be liked, and I want them to like prove like I can do this, and you got to believe in me, all these things. And I remember when at one of my first meetings, and the manager, he was talking about, some technology. It was way over my head. I didn't know what the hell he's talking about. I was like, yep, I understand, Mr. Mistudda. Taking notes, feeling confident, asking questions. I get back to the recruiting team and I told him, hey, so I think I have my first opportunity, and here's what it is. And they need this, this, and this. And the recruiter's like, well, what is that? I'm like, I have no idea, but you got to find it really, really fast. And they're like, well, how am I going to do that? I was like, shoot, I'll be right back. And I literally had to go eat crow. And I learned that this is why, how about next time I qualify an opportunity, have my recruiting team come with me, tee them up for success versus, me thinking I'm the smartest in the room. No, I'm not. Like, two people are better than one. So I literally called him back. I got my recruiter on the phone, let he or she ask some questions, reminded myself that I'm not the smartest in the room. Let's let my recruiter, because we hire them for a reason. Let's help them do it. And once I figured that, it was almost like a cheat code in a video game. I was like, wait a minute, I gotta get out of the way. And it's not about me. And once I can help my client understand that it's not just Casey Jacox, it's Hull Kenyon. It was Kforce at the time, just like it could be Airswift. Like whatever company you work for, it's not always about you. And the lesson I learned throughout that 20-year journey is we are all replaceable. And I joke kind of tongue in cheek, when I left Kforce, they're still in business doing great. And it didn't fall apart. And they're doing fine. And there's many very, very talented people, just like, when people leave a company, they're most likely not going to go out of business, everybody. So like that mindset of humility, but a lot of that was started at age 17, where I played football through high school. I was lucky enough to play in college, and I was our starting quarterback our junior year. I had a very tight competition with another individual, and I was more cerebral, a little bit more skinny, and I was competing against a guy who was a way better athlete than me. And when I got named the starter against him, they're like, a lot of times people are like, what? He beat him out? And it was like a really, really close match. Well, anyway, I played my junior year, had an okay year. Fast forward to my senior year now, and I went to a couple camps. I was getting recruited by some bigger schools, and we have these things in the United States called the Jamboree, buddy. And Jamboree is like a practice game right before the season starts. Well, right before during the Jamboree, the last play of the Jamboree, for some reason, I got put back in. I thought I was done for the day, but I got put back in. And I would end up breaking my foot in 4 spots and not play in my entire senior season. The gentleman that I beat out, his name was Shane. Shane was going to play tight end for us that year. Now he got thrust right back into a quarterback because the world moves on, everybody. We were all replaceable. And I was our captain. I was primed for this amazing senior season, and I had to just watch. And after the first game, I'm in, on the surface, come on, Shane, I hope you do well. Deep down, like, I hope he sucks. I hope he throws 55 interceptions. I hope the team loses. And I hope the team realizes they need Casey so much to be successful. That didn't happen. We lost our first game. We won our second. We won our third. And all of a sudden, they start having a great season. And I'm just watching from the sidelines in a cast with crutches, feeling sorry for myself. And something inside me said, you got to go ask for help. You got to go ask for help. And I remember going after like game 4 to my high school football coach, who I'm still really close with to this day. Shout out to you, Coach Marty Osborne. I said, Coach, I need help. I am so mad at my mindset. I'm so mad at myself as a teammate. I'm thinking the worst things. I'm a captain, not acting like it. I don't know what to do. And he looked at me. He's like, Case, man, I'm so proud of you. I was like, did you just hear what I said? How could you be proud of that? He said, because you're asking for help, which triggered, that's what vulnerability is about. I realized that we don't have everything figured out. And once we talked a little bit, and he goes, let's figure out a new role for you. I'm like, what do you mean, Coach? I can't play. I got a cast. I still kind of had a little bit of a bad attitude. He's like, you're going to go up in the booth, and you're going to, which on top of stadium, you're going to help me call plays. You'll be my offensive coordinator. I'm like, really? And literally when he said that, it was like a vacuum sucked that negative energy right out. I'm like, you're right. I could do that. Let's go. Coach had the wherewithal to instill belief in me, confidence in me, got me right back to my right mindset. Now I was Shane's quarterback coach. Now it was like bringing energy at practice, firing people up. Like I was having fun again. And thankfully, Central Washington gave me, I was like the last quarterback they brought in after high school. Now I had the resilience, the grit, the mindset, the competitiveness. I'm like, well, I'm going to go make the best of this opportunity. I went on to being a 2.5-year starter, All-American my senior year, and had amazing teammates. And, but those, I'm 48 years old, and I still remember that injury. I still remember going to talk to Coach Osborne. I still remember all that. And it prepped me for all these journeys in business. Like as sellers, we need to ask for help. You're never going to be perfect. If you think a deal's stuck, go ask for help. It doesn't mean you're dumb or not smart. You're gonna figure out ways to like get better. If you're gonna go to a meeting that you don't really know, ask for help. So I think like checking your ego always, being humble always, being vulnerable that we don't have it all figured out. Coming from someone who I was the number one producer at K4 for 10 straight years, I still ask for help. So I guess it just blows my mind why people feel like we have to be perfect. And there's like this. Last story I'll say, there's this phrase called "fake it till you make it," which I think is the worst advice possible, in one man's opinion. And I remember I was speaking on stage to a large company. I won't say who they are, a couple hundred people, and the VP of marketing, right before I went on, told their team, "Hey guys, this year sometimes you got to fake it till you make it." I'm like, oh my God, because I have a slide in about 20 minutes or so that says the exact opposite, that literally said, don't fake it till you make it. I tell stories why. I'm like, what am I going to do? What am I going to do? I'm like, screw it. And I go, so literally they introduced me, clap, I come in, I said, hey, before we get started, can everybody, there's a movie called Old School, when they say earmuffs, like Vince Vaughn's character, I need you guys put your hands over your ears, everybody except the vice president of marketing in the back. He and I are going to have a quick little chat. And I said, I just need to apologize to you now because I'm going to tell your team to do the exact opposite in about 24 minutes. And I hope you don't get mad at me. Hoping we can come to agreement or agree to disagree. I'm cool with both, but I'm going to try to give your team a little bit something different to think about. And everybody laughed. And he came up after me afterwards. He's like, I can't believe you did that in front of everybody. Loved it. And I think you're right. And you've kind of helped me change my mindset because how you introduced me in the beginning, I take pride in that. I want to be Casey always. Is this the fake Casey? Is the real Casey? No, sometimes the real Casey gets me in trouble a little bit because I goof around a lot or I'm too raw and authentic. But I'd rather be that person because I always know, hey, at least they're getting the same person in and out of home. But it's my kids, my wife, my clients, friends, and all these things that we do don't define us. Right. And so I think we can focus on just being our own personal self, the rawness and who we are, being able to practice the fundamentals we talked about, which are, life skills because in any community, business, we all need relationships. And I guess full circle back to AI. AI is not going to always do the work for us. It'll help us, but we still got to be able to be the ones to build these relationships that will withstand the ups, the downs, the struggles we're all going to face, which happens each and every day. So anyway, I love talking about this stuff and I appreciate the opportunity to join you. And I hope this has been helpful for you in the audience.
Oh, it's terrific, Casey. And I think that, just to add a little bit to what you just said, as far as, asking for help, I almost feel sometimes what happens is you're training salespeople, they feel, we kind of build them up to be, you need to have a tough exterior, right? Because there's going to be rejection along the way and you need to kind of pull yourself up by the bootstraps and, you want to arm them with all the information that they need. But then often it's almost like we create our own problem because that should not be translated into, I have to do it all on my own. I can't ask for help, which is the polar opposite, is similar, in my sales experience. I always asked for help, and not in the beginning. In the beginning, I kind of felt like I needed to do it on my own. But when I learned the magic of being able to pull in the right people and the right team, everybody's winning. And which is such a wonderful feeling. And you're right. Sometimes ego does play a component in that because you want to feel like you did this, you pulled up that, 80-pound tuna by yourself. But in reality, there's a whole team that's helping you fish that tuna out of the water.
Yeah. And it's almost counterintuitive, like, because you think you have to do it. But like in the end, the best leaders are always promoting their employees. The best leaders are making it about other people. The best, and the best leaders are like, when they lead teams, they're not speaking a lot in the meetings. They're asking questions. They're letting their teams talk. They're letting their teams, that's how we develop people. So just like I think in the staffing industry, like the best account managers, the best AEs, I think are always about like promote their recruiting team, promote their ops team, promote their back office team. So I don't have to deal with late invoices. So I don't have to deal with like, if my job's not recruiting, let others who do that, let them do it really, really well. Get out of the way, and it's very counterintuitive, but it works. I know I have stories for days on backing that up, and it's easier said than done. I think you have to go through your own failure at one point to realize, oh, this is what Casey and Anna were talking about. But learn from us, everybody. I mean, a lot of sarcastically speaking, street fights that got. But I'd rather, if I can go back and reteach my 23-year-old self, it'd be just, and people ask me this all the time, and I always say, get curious, learn, ask more questions each and every day. Don't be afraid to ask questions. And there's no such thing as a dumb question. Maybe, is the light on? It might be a dumb question, but, when you're curious and you're genuinely curious, and then the leaders embrace curiosity, that's what I think I've seen. Those to me are the most healthiest cultures in any of the clients I get to consult with.
Yeah. So Casey, I wanted to kind of talk a little bit about, you mentioned that you wrote a book a while ago, but what practical tips can you leave the audience with as far as building strong professional relationships, and maybe share a little bit about the book and how you talk about, the relationship is really the key to success.
Yeah. So I wrote a book back in 2020 called Win the Relationship, Not the Deal. And to me, it was, I wanted to write about what were the things that I focused on each and every day to have success when I was in corporate. And these aren't like the sexiest things. I kind of highlighted and briefly touched about me earlier, but like people like to be around people who are positive, I believe. And when you're bringing energy to a room, not sucking it out of the room, people want to be around you. When you're setting expectations, like whether it's good news or bad news, that's not always easy to do, but that can help her make or break a relationship. Women out there in relationships, you love it when your husband listens to you. I've learned that, hey, my wife doesn't want me to hear her. She wants me to listen to her. Well, same advice I give in sales. Like sometimes clients, if they're going to share a problem with you or a business challenge or a goal, don't just listen, don't just hear them and then go on to sell your product. Listen, ask a follow-up question, a TED-based question, which I like to teach, called Tell Me, Explain, Describe. So like you're using your curiosity to get them to talk more because you genuinely want to know more what's going on. I write about the power of a CRM. Most sellers don't like to use a CRM. It's a waste of time because my manager wants me to just track all this stuff. Well, no, it's going to make you look smarter, everybody. I document everything about what my clients, whether it's their kids, their band concert, where they went to camp, when's their birthday, what's their favorite coffee, all these things. So then I could, how'd you remember that? Because I wrote it down and I documented everybody and I studied it before I went and met with them. We've talked a lot about ego. I wrote about that, and obviously just relationships take time. So I think if I would have known what I've known now in 2020, I didn't realize how important these principles would have been now, like we've kind of talked about a little bit earlier. But relationships are never going to get replaced by AI. You still have to do the work like we've talked about numerous times in this conversation. And I think like whether you're, one thing I'd say I learned, Anna, is I wrote the book for salespeople, but I've been the book and the content, and the work I'm doing, it's like kind of surprised me sometimes. Like, how did I get hired in wealth management? How am I getting consulting in finance? And how did I get hired to work in real estate and insurance and the golf industry? Well, because all those jobs need to build relationships. So whether you're in back office finance, these things I wrote about can still impact you. Whether you're a warehouse manager and you got to work with your people running forklifts, 6 things can still help you build relationships. So I didn't know that then. I know that now from just feedback from people. And so it's something I'm really, really proud of. It's something I know I worked really hard on. And now I have just a vision to just help change the way people think, to realize it's not as difficult as we need to make it, everybody. If we can just follow the kind of these simplistic, which I call kind of common sense business principles that I'm not always good at myself. And the most kind of tongue-in-cheek, embarrassing thing I say about the book is when I was going through the editing process 4 or 5 years ago, I read it about 10 times, not because I'm an egomaniac, but because I had to just reread it and make sure it was it was my voice. And every time I'd read it, or if I go reread it with a client, now I learn from myself, which if hopefully if that doesn't like further humble everybody, like I'm the author, everybody, I'm learning from myself. Like, so these are things I'm not perfect at, but I'm striving to get perfect at it. I'm striving to be, at the end game, whatever it is that I know I've worked really, really hard to bring out my best version of me, to build the relationships that are going to withstand the ups, the downs. So anyway, I'll stop there to see what other questions you have.
Yeah. So, I mean, it's an evergreen process, right? You're constantly learning, you're constantly evolving. And at the end of the day, I would say, Casey, people buy from people, right? And so you need to have that connection. The relationship is going to get you there first before any product or service or anything that you're looking to try to sell the client. I think the success that we've seen in salespeople has always been where a client would view that individual as a trusted advisor, someone that they can trust and that they're credible because they're going to tell them the truth about what's going to work and what's not going to work. And that's all relationship based. Any closing thoughts, Casey, as far as advice that you'd want to give the audience on, how do you have this balance between, technology and really a constant reminder of some of the fundamental skills that you talked about?
I think a couple things I'd say. Well, I love one of my favorite pieces of advice that someone gave me that I love sharing with others is around ego. So I would say the advice this person gave me, he said, Casey, do you want to be right or do you want to get what you want? Can't get both. And I was like, well, I want both. He's like, you can't. You got to pick one. I was like, I want to get what I want. He's like, good answer. Because I want to be right, that means my ego's getting in the way. So getting what I want is you're checking your ego. Maybe my idea is not the best idea for me. So it's like being able to think about that. I think lastly, just, as we've talked about a lot of things today regarding, as technology and AI and relationships and curiosity, all these things. I just would just remind people that it's a journey. It takes time. If success is going to come too fast, it's probably not going to withstand it. I mean, I can think of many people I work with that had way too much success. And then they start overspending. They started, upgrading the car. And next thing you know, once business kind of went down, they had to return all that stuff. So I always like to say, live below your means a little bit, stay grounded. Don't get too high, don't get too low, and just find ways to get a little bit better each and every day. And then as it relates to technology, how I do, I like to just still, because if you don't keep up with times, you will get replaced eventually, and you will get kind of left behind. So don't be intimidated by it, but just embrace it and try to find small ways to use it in your business. Like for me, I was scared at first, but I was like, I'm going to do it. And I remember just using AI with my podcast recording. I'm like, oh my God, this just saved me a bunch of time. That was great. Whether it's using the AI companion when I use Zoom, it spits out a summary for me about what we talked about. So I'm still going to take notes, but the AI companion gives me a way to hey, did I miss anything? If I'm going to write, I build out a presentation, or if I'm going to write maybe I'll click the rewrite with AI button on LinkedIn. And if I don't like it how it's said, I can still edit what I want, but I'm still doing the work. It's just kind of again, that sarcastic joke I said before about it's in my sidecar on the motorcycle. I'm just using it as a way to help me sharpen my own skills or get a little bit better. But in the end, I'm going to do the work, everybody. And, just like, sarcasm coming, you can't be a 23-year-old life coach. You're 23 years old. I love you dearly, but how are you going to coach someone in their 50s about life? So let's embrace the time that we got to do the work. It's going to take time. Let's still embrace technology where we can to be the best version of ourselves. But again, you still got to do the fundamentals. You still got to be able to back these stories up of success or failure, because I think that's what connects people, is knowing that this person has the skills to fly the plane. And this isn't like ChatGPT, how do you fly a 747 and then expect all your passengers to be comfortable before we take off? Like, that seems a little risky and scary.
Exactly. Casey, it's always so much fun to talk to you. I think we can talk for hours. So one word that you want to leave the audience with.
I had two.
Yes.
Stay curious.
Love it. Excellent. Thank you so much, Casey.
Thank you.
Thanks for joining us on the AI to Z podcast with Anna Frazzetto. If you found value in today's episode, consider following for more insightful STEM discussions. We'll be back with another deep dive. Until then.